Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and we're here to talk a little bit about one of the issues that concerns most Westchester residents, in fact, most residents everywhere, and that is the incidence of crime. In this particular case, those incidents as they exist here in Westchester County, which is under our direct responsibility. I'm joined today by our Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, a Chief of Staff for our Executive Branch, Andrew Ferris, and then the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Terrence Raynor, and the Chief of Department for our Department of Public Safety, James Luciano. And we appreciate the professionals in law enforcement that are here today. They're going to share a little bit about what our county Department of Public Safety, routinely called the county police, what they do in everyday terms, so that you understand exactly how it is that they go about doing their job professionally and how it really represents our safety. We look at information that deals with the way people feel about this most important issue. And I cannot separate, as a generalist, the way people look at the fear of crime from the actual incidence of crime. Back in the mid-1970s, I lived in Mount Vernon, and I was a young man going to graduate school, working in the Bronx and going to graduate school in Manhattan at New York University. I rode the subway trains late at night, walked the streets from the subway late at night to go to where I lived. And the thought on my mind of the potential for crime was always there. There were incidents of crime that were happening. I never had an incident directed to me, but the thought of it and the fear of it was there at all times. It didn't stop me from doing what I had to do. I had to go to work, I had to go to school, I had to live where I lived. But I understand that we have to address that concern. But the best way to deal with that concern is to give you the facts. And those facts are represented by those incidents of crime that actually happen here in Westchester County. We watch news, and news covers things that are happening primarily in the New York metropolitan area, heavy emphasis on New York City. On any given night at 11 o'clock or earlier in the day, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, we're seeing things that are happening in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, northern New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, etc. And of course, there's stories that reach national news attention. So something that happens in Phoenix, Arizona, or Los Angeles, or Florida also becomes part of our input of information. And we draw judgments based on what we see and hear. We also draw judgments based on anecdotes of things that actually happened. And when something happens in our neighborhood, if something happens to a friend or a neighbor in the community that we live in, that affects our perception. And those perceptions create a sense of concern about our personal safety. Because everything in this free, small d democratic society is based on our freedom to move about, our freedom to earn a living, our freedom to function within the rights that we're given as citizens. One of the concerns is, will that freedom allow us to do what we want to do? And there's fear of crime intercepting us while we go about those freedoms. To deal with the actual incidence of crime, the number of times that crime has occurred, we ask royally on a statewide basis, and through the State Department of Criminal Justice Services, asks every law enforcement agency to report on a regular basis about those incidents of crime that happens within their jurisdictions. Here in Westchester County, we have 45 municipalities, and we have the county as an entity. Not every one of those municipalities has a police force. It's about 40 police forces, as I think correctly, in local. And each of those departments report, and we as a county report for our responsibilities. We have direct policing responsibility in the village of Mount Kisco. We have direct policing responsibility in part in the town of Cortland. And then we have responsibilities which both the commissioner and the chief will talk about in our patrol and our responsibilities. But every one of those departments has to report on a regular basis to the state of New York. And that reporting includes documenting both violent crimes and property crimes, which is a very general way to categorize them. On the violent side, issues of murder, homicide, if you will, issues of rape, issues where we have the type of behavior, aggravated personal assault that represents what most people fear, is crime that's directed to them as a person or to a loved one as a person. There are also property crimes. There's auto thefts. There's arson to a property. There's larceny, burglary. And each one of those statistical data are reported by each of these different municipalities, and then they're summarized for the purposes of Westchester County into an overall number. Now, our Westchester County Police Department has specific responsibilities, and the local police departments have responsibilities to deal with crime in their jurisdictions. The County Police Department outside of those areas with direct responsibility works as a partner with those local governments. Sometimes they're called in a particular situation when the size and scope of the problem is so large that in a smaller jurisdiction, the local police department is of a smaller size. Sometimes we know there's a regional activity that happens in one of these municipalities. And then every so often there's a crime that fits into a certain category where we have, as a county government, the police expertise to deal with. A bomb reported. We have a bomb squad that knows how to handle those things. Not every municipality can handle that. We have a rape crimes unit that can respond in those situations. Not every municipal government has the resources to do that. And we also have responsibility for the training function of police, and that becomes part of our response in helping all of the police in our departments, both the new, those who are coming in as recruits, and those who are getting in-service training while they're in, to be at the very cutting edge of the things we need to know. Just consider for a second how much of the world has changed with technology. There are now crimes that happen in the cyber world that did not exist 20 or 30 years ago. And so our law enforcement professionals try to stay on top of that. They have access to resources at the state and the federal level, but how they use those resources as a regional county police department can be an asset to those police departments that are smaller in size, policing some of our villages. Because we have communities as small as Buchanan with 2,000 people and Yonkers with over 200,000 people, and they're both incorporated entities. The statistics that we receive from New York State summarize the incidence of crime across the board. The fear of crime makes people think that, crime is on the rise and crime is everywhere. And crimes are committed. And when those crimes are committed, they are searing and they affect the people who are aware of them and who are directly affected by it. But when you look at the overall circumstances, you try to determine, are there trends? Because those trends will help us, help the professionals in law enforcement, shift resources to try to address what's happening. And if we shift resources effectively, then we can have a positive impact on it. It's not merely dealing with a criminal act and how do you punish the criminal to deter crime, but how do you anticipate things? How do you use your professional resources to break up a drug ring in advance, to break up an auto theft ring in advance? And sometimes when you look at statistically reported crimes, what you can't see are the things that would have happened if we didn't do the preventative actions that these men and other men and women of law enforcement do routinely. Those of us in the civilian population don't see those actions. We only know the end results. And the end results we see is when a crime occurs. We don't see how many of those things have been deferred by professional action that anticipated something and stopped something from happening. And we think that's part of these as well. But having said all of that, the statistical reports that we've received from New York State show definitively that in Westchester County, crime is down from 2023 to 2024. Judging the same amount of time, we're looking at statistics that take us through the end of September, so it's the first 9 months of the year. They are down over the sweep of time that covers this administration. We began our tenure in 2018, and so we look as a baseline of 2017, the year before we took office, and where we are in 2024, and that also shows that crime is down, provably, trackably down. Some of the elements of that. We've had shootings down from 29 shootings a year ago to 19 this year. We have the second lowest number of shootings on record in 2024. We'd prefer to have no shootings, but we have to be realistic about what happens out in the community. There are gang activities that happen. There are interactions between individuals who know each other that lead to gunplay, and those are the kinds of things that contribute to these numbers. Homicides, murders are down significantly year over year over the course of the last year and over the course, historically, over 7 years. We've seen numbers that are much higher. You'll see some graphics that are put in front of you to give you an idea of what that represents. The reduction in reported crime must be noted that it depends on where you create a baseline. During the period of time of COVID, we saw a spike in crime across the board. In 2020 and in 2021, the whole structure of our society was different. You lived it. We lived it. We know that people were not out interacting, working. There were more people who were working home or not working at all. And there was frustration and issues that developed, and we saw spikes in a number of different areas during those years. But once the society has come back more to normal, which we track from about 2022 on, we're looking at numbers that are more comparable in the 2017, 18, 19 range and the 22, 23, 24 range. Those numbers are down dramatically. The statistics show it, and we think that's an important statement. As a public official, a general public official, I don't take personal credit for these numbers. I give credit primarily to the men and women of law enforcement for their professional work, not only in dealing with criminality when it occurs, but in helping to prevent criminality. That is what we do when we fully fund the police. In fact, this year, our budget for 2024 is the highest that it's ever been for the Westchester County Department of Public Safety. We anticipate those numbers growing in the 2025 budget as we try to stay on top of personnel staffing and we try to stay on top of technological activities. It's also important to note that it's not merely just the number of people that are involved in law enforcement, but how they use their time and effort. There's a program every August called National Night Out. It rained pretty hard this year on that particular night. But most local police departments and the county police department do events annually that put the police and the community in close personal contact. That creates a relationship between people who live in the community and the police department that grows respect for the police and grows a system of being able to respond better. The relationship in the village of Mount Kisco, where we have primary policing responsibility, and the county police department is exceptional. And you see that between the people who represent some of the community organizations in Mount Kisco, and that's across demographic lines. Mount Kisco has a very high population of people of color, primarily Hispanic, and that relationship is very strong. And of course, part of the staffing of the department is to have people who are in the police services who are diverse, those who have the capacity to speak Spanish and can communicate properly with those whose primary language is Spanish, and women in the police department so they can relate to the women that they see in the community for those purposes. But there are reasons and rationales, I'll address this in my close, where people will try to argue, don't believe what you know to be true, believe what we tell you to be true because we want you to have that belief. It's important to base strategy, spending of funds, and understanding what to do based on reality. And the reality is that we've had a good experience over the last year and over the last 7 years in reducing crime. I'd like Commissioner Rayner to touch on, along with Chief Luciano, some of the strategies that they've used, the deployment of their department to address the issue of crime. Commissioner.
Thank you, County Executive Latimer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And today's news is certainly very encouraging for us in law enforcement. One of the key factors contributing to the reduction in crime is the partnerships that we in law enforcement continue to build. The dedicated, hardworking men and women of the Westchester County Department of Public Safety, along with our law enforcement colleagues from throughout the county, are committed to working with our community organizations, our stakeholders, as well as all our law enforcement colleagues at every level of government. We realize that we achieve enhanced public safety through collaborations. Our collaborations include our Multidiscipline Threat Assessment Center, where we work along with other law enforcement agencies, mental health experts, educators, as well as the general public, looking to prevent targeted violence by providing a direct way to report persons or groups who may be plotting some sort of violent activity. Our agency also participates in Project Alliance, county agencies working together to address behavioral issues and behavioral health emergencies that do develop from time to time. We have police investigators assigned to several task forces which operate in and around Westchester County. So collaborating with the DEA, the FBI, the United States Marshal Service, Homeland Security, and the United States Postal Service ensures the public that we're working hard to bring about a safer county. Our Real-Time Crime Center, it's a 24-hour-a-day operation which is housed in police headquarters, where intelligence is constantly gathered, analyzed, and shared in real time with our law enforcement partners, whether they are at the federal level, the state level, or the local level. And I firmly believe that the crime reduction in Westchester is a testament to what we can do and what we can achieve when we work together. In addition to working with all our law enforcement partners and other county agencies, it's important that I note that we are fully funded. We have been during my tenure since 2018, and that goes to the testament that the county executive and his team are committed to making sure that we have the resources in public safety to bring a safer county to all. With respect to some of our initiatives, I have with me today Chief James Luciano, who can certainly speak to some of the relationships we enjoy with other departments, and he can also speak to the activities that have been taking place within the Patrol Services Division and our Investigative Services Divisions. Chief Luciano.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. County Executive, Mr. Deputy County Executive. I echo the sentiments of the County Executive and Commissioner Raynor with regards to the County Police's efforts and the collaboration that we are fortunate to share, which makes it such a success in reducing crime. We can't stress enough that this collaboration really built upon the establishment of the Real-Time Crime Center even further than the collaboration was prior to 2018. And the strengthening of those relationships using technology, cutting-edge technology to combat crime, to prevent crime, the sharing information and knocking down those jurisdictional borders where we share the information, we share technology, we work together. We establish a task force, part-time task force, not the ones that Commissioner Raynor was referring to, like our federal task force assignments, which is a full-time assignment. We stand up task force if we have pattern crimes that occur, where we have similar crimes in multiple jurisdictions. We'll put together a task force for a couple weeks and follow up on certain information and leads that help us in deterring future crime or apprehending those that are responsible. Our patrol services, our uniformed force of the county police, as in most departments, is the front line. They're the backbone of any police agency, as is for the county police and our very unique functions with the parkways, county-owned property, the town and villages that we contract under, the university, community college, and the airport. There are front lines. The community engagement that they deal with every day is very special. Getting the trust and transparency through our community helps us solve crimes, to obtain information. Dealing with our youth in the schools, our school resource officers and the schools that they're deployed to help in that sense when dealing with our adolescents as they're going through school, providing guidance and leadership in that respect. Our Investigative Services Division, very helpful to local jurisdictions that have crimes, that don't have the manpower or the officer power to deal with crimes that may expand beyond their normal scope. We're happy to provide assistance, which we do on a daily basis, to help them solve their crimes and provide leads, as well as our Forensic Investigations Unit, using certain technology to analyze different types of evidence, whether it's latent fingerprint, ballistics, our digital evidence section, working on a new DNA analysis function going forward that will help in solving many crimes and providing leads in many crimes, not only in our primary jurisdiction, but in helping our brothers and sisters in other departments throughout the county and in the region. We have a variety of other units as well. Our narcotics unit provides local assistance to our departments in a variety of functions there, not only for narcotics, but gun trafficking as well. So we're always there to help out our brothers and sisters in need, and we very thankful that we have being fully funded from the County Executive's Office, as has been for numerous years, about the past 6 years. And we look forward to continued partnerships in combating crime. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rayner and Chief Luciano, and thank you, and please convey to the men and women of the department our deep appreciation for their professionalism, day to day, every day. Absolutely. Next, I'm going to ask Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins to comment. Now, Ken, as well as myself and Andrew First, our Chief of Staff, we're involved in multiple areas of responsibility, and of course, the responsibility of the Department of Public Safety is our front line in dealing with crime. But public safety is also created by the innovative work that goes on in our Department of Corrections and our Department of Probation. And Ken has been deeply involved in working with those departments as well. And Ken, I'd like for you to comment some about how that also helps mesh into our effort to keep people safe.
And thank you, George, and certainly the continued appreciation to Commissioner Rayner and Chief Luciano and all the members of our Department of Public Safety, as well as every law enforcement individual at every different level, but certainly the ones that police our streets in Westchester County and beyond. As County Executive pointed out, the reality is that there's a combination of efforts that continually need to take place. And in this administration, from day one in 2018, we've been committed to not only fully funding and supporting our Department of Public Safety, our police, as well as making the investments necessary in our Department of Correction, as well as our Department of Probation. And all of those pieces working together are the things that help us to achieve these goals. And again, it's everyone working together in that level of partnership. In the Department of Correction, when people are in our facility, which is for folks that that have been sentenced for crimes that are 1 year or less, they're going to return to the community. So there's a tremendous amount of time, energy, and effort that our Department of Correction and some innovative programs that they have implemented to be able to make sure that when people return to the community, the recidivism rate, the rate of going back into the criminal justice system has been reduced and minimized because of all of their outstanding achievements, including in being nationally certified and making sure all the kind of things that we should have happen in our correction facility happen. Our Department of Probation is nationally recognized as a leader in what it does, and it feeds input into the court system after someone is arrested and making analysis of the kind of situation someone may be in, pointing to the help that someone might need, whether it's in Department of Community Mental Health Services or in social services. They do a tremendous job, and Commissioner Posey there in Department of Probation, and certainly Commissioner Joe Spano in our Department of Correction, and all of their respective staffs are part of the fabric and dynamic that help to lead to these results. The partnerships and the outreach to local communities with all of our municipal partners at every level, and that's whether it's at a local level, a state level, at a federal level. We in Westchester have been blessed by having County Executive Latimer and his leadership to be able to walk through this particular effort and making sure that everyone understands that their voices are being heard, and we're being able to make the investments that are necessary to continue to protect the people of Westchester County. And certainly during our polarized political times, it is a disservice for anyone to suggest that the real results, the real data that is in front of people in Westchester County is just not true. We are moving in a direction and continue to work hard, all those police professionals, law enforcement professionals across the board, making sure that we're going to have the continued effort necessary to make sure the results continue to happen. And as County Executive Latimer said right from the very beginning, that doesn't mean no crime happens. We're always working to try to prevent those, and by making these investments, by making sure that the police are fully funded, as well as all those ancillary departments, whether it's correction or probation or anything else, with creative, innovative programs like Project Alliance, working and investing in real-time crime, working with our task force to be able to deal with our local municipality on homelessness issues, making sure our people in Westchester are safe. And that's the kind of work that needs to continue, and no one should be looking at anything but the reality, which is the efforts and the numbers just don't lie. The work has achieved those results, but we have to continue. It never stops, and we're always going to stay on top of that for the safety of the people of Westchester County. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ken. So in addition to complimenting the men and women of our Department of Public Safety, and as Ken pointed out, under the leadership of Joe Spano, the Commissioner of our Department of Corrections, the men and women of Corrections, and also the men and women of Probation under the direction of Commissioner Rocco Pozzi, we have 3 departments that are directly involved in dealing with elements of law enforcement that keep us safe. Let me also extend appreciation to the District Attorney's Office. Mimi Roca, our District Attorney, who will be leaving office at the end of the year, she and the professional prosecutors and support people in that operation work hand in glove to deal with these issues of crime as well. And it's complicated. We all have seen the television show Law and Order. There's one part of the system that does this and one part of the system that does that, but the system functions when all of those pieces come together. I want to also extend appreciation to the individuals who serve as legislators for the New York State Legislature, the State Assembly, the state senators. They have been able to, at various times, get grants that help us add to our mix of situations. We had a vehicle, I recall, that was just provided at the DPS offices that State Senator Pete Harkin was able to achieve. And we look for those efforts, and we look for those efforts from our federal legislators as well. Those resources coming our way are well used by us when we have it, and we think that is an important element in all of this. As most of you know, just to close, I'm a big sports fan, and I talk about sports probably more than I talk about government or politics in my non-governmental life. And I happen to be a fan of the New York Jets, and they had another very sad loss a couple of nights ago, losing to the Buffalo Bills. I saw the game, not happy with the end result. I compliment the fact that Buffalo won, but the Jets played well enough to win. But it is a matter of fact that they lost. The Buffalo Bills scored 23 points. That was more than the New York Jets scoring 20. I did not turn on the radio the next morning and hear somebody say, oh, the Jets actually won. They actually scored. And there was additional points. I would have loved that to be the case. I'd love to have assumed I fell asleep with a minute left and they scored a touchdown in the last minute, but they didn't. Things happen, and when they happen, there's a certain reality and a finality to them. The scoreboard didn't lie. The Bills won, the Jets lost, and us Jet fans have to accept that and figure out what happens next week against Pittsburgh. Back in the real world, we cannot tell ourselves a fantasy because it satisfies a narrative or an ideology. We have to deal with things on the ground. If the numbers were going in the other direction, we would have to talk about those efforts that we would need to further support our various departments, to determine what we can do as we try to do in the social side of all of this, because the work that we do in childcare, the work that we do in mental health, the work that we do in a host of different things, in affordable housing and programs that we partner with the local clergy, all of those things help to deal with societal issues that can lead to crime or can help us defer the amount of crime that happens. Those things are important too. But you cannot look at the scoreboard and deny the final score. Right now, the scoreboard shows that the efforts of the men and women of these various departments and people in the community has had a positive result in Westchester. I cannot speak for the city of Chicago. I cannot speak for any other jurisdiction. But what we've been doing is working, and it's important for you to know that, because I go back to where I ended. The fear of crime is something completely different. Fear is what's in your mind. At a certain age of life, I fear that I may pull a muscle if I do something at my age that I did that wouldn't have been a problem 30 years ago. That fear is in your mind, whether you actually pull the muscle or not. But we can't let the fear paralyze us, and we can't let the fear move us to make decisions. We have to be able to be clear-eyed about what the challenges are ahead and what we have to do to continue the direction that we're heading in, to do it better every day, but to do it in a way that actually delivers a final result. And if we get the final result, to understand what success looks like and that we accept it, and we hope to build on it for the future. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. We look forward to speaking to you again soon, and have a good day.